I don't talk about that summer much, mostly because when I do, people look at me like I'm either lying or losing my mind. Back in 2017, I got what I thought was my dream summer job, a volunteer caretaker on Marrow Point Lighthouse. It's a lonely old lighthouse on the Maine coast, built in the late 1800s. These days it's automated, the light runs itself, but they still hire someone every summer to keep an eye on it, handle minor maintenance, and do tours. On weekends, I was 24 then, just finished college, didn't know what to do next. So the idea of living by the ocean, rent-free, sounded perfect. The lighthouse itself sits on a rocky peninsula, about half a mile of dirt road off the main highway. Closest neighbor was a retired fisherman, 2 coves away. The keeper's house, small, 1 bedroom, a sagging couch, a kitchenette that smelled faintly of salt and mildew. But the view, the Atlantic, stretching out endlessly, waves breaking on black rock, gulls circling in the wind. At first, it felt like paradise. By day, I painted trim, cleaned the narrow spiral stairs in the tower, and gave short tours to tourists who'd make the drive out. By night, I'd sit on the balcony with a book or just watch the blinking beam sweep across the water. But after a couple weeks, it started feeling different. It began with sounds. Late at night, after the wind had died down, I'd hear footsteps echoing in the spiral staircase, slow, heavy, like someone coming up from the bottom. I'd wait, half expecting a tourist who got lost, but nobody ever appeared. Once, I even went down with a flashlight, step by step, calling out, "Hello? Anyone there?" Nothing, just my own voice bouncing off damp stone. I tried to tell myself it was the old metal contracting in the cool night air, but deep down, it didn't feel like that. The next thing was the light. The lamp itself ran on an automatic timer. Every 10 seconds, a blinding beam would sweep the ocean, then circle back. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up and glanced out my window. The light had stopped, just stuck, frozen, shining straight out to sea. Then it flickered and turned and the cycle resumed. The next morning, I checked the mechanism. Everything looked normal. I told myself I must have been half dreaming. But it happened again, 2 nights later, and each time it stopped at exactly the same angle, pointing at a dark patch of water, maybe half a mile offshore. I tried to ignore it. But one foggy afternoon, I had a tour, 2 older couples from Massachusetts. We climbed up the tower, and while they were admiring the view, one of the women asked, "So, do you ever see him out there?" I laughed awkwardly. "See who?" She hesitated. "The last keeper, they say sometimes. He walks the rocks at night." I'd never heard that before. After they left, I called the historical society that managed the lighthouse. The woman on the phone got quiet when I asked. Finally, she said, "That might be Thomas Kearney. He was the last full-time keeper here in the 1960s. Disappeared one night during a storm. They never found him." That night, the wind picked up, and the sea sounded closer somehow, crashing hard against the rocks. Around midnight, I was brushing my teeth when I heard it. Bang, bang, bang. 3 sharp knocks on the keeper's house back door. I froze, toothbrush in hand, heart pounding. "Hello?" I called out. "Who's there?" No answer. I opened the door, the wind nearly ripped it from my hand, but the yard was empty, just fog rolling in off the water. When I closed the door, I noticed something on the floorboards. A wet footprint, barefoot, wide, toes splayed, like someone used to walking on rock. After that, it got worse. Some nights, lying in bed, I'd hear someone whistling outside. A low, tuneless whistle, drifting closer then fading into the sound of the surf. And the light kept freezing, always on that same dark patch of sea. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. Just after sunset, I grabbed the old pair of binoculars from the storage room, climbed to the lantern deck, and aimed them toward that spot offshore. At first, all I saw was dark, rolling water. Then lightning flickered behind the clouds. And for an instant, I saw something. A figure, standing knee-deep on a half-submerged rock, head down, arms hanging limp at its sides, too far to see clearly. But I knew it was human. Then it was gone. Binoculars, heart hammering so loud I could barely breathe. A week later, I met the fisherman from 2 coves over. Mr. Lorne, I asked him if he'd ever seen anything strange. His face went pale. "Don't go near that rock," he warned. "My father called it Kearney's Stone. Some nights, you'll see him standing there waiting." "Waiting for what?" I whispered. He shook his head. "Nobody knows, but don't answer if he knocks." A few nights after, the fog was so thick, I couldn't see the beacon from my porch. Just before 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of water dripping and the smell of seaweed. My bedroom window was wide open, though I never opened it. I got up, shivering. And in the hallway, I saw wet footprints. They led from the window down the hall to the back door. I followed, every hair on my body standing on end. The door was ajar, swinging slightly. I stepped out onto the wet grass. Fog curled around me like something alive. Then I saw him. At the edge of the yard, facing away, a man in an old oilskin coat. Shoulders hunched, head low, my voice caught in my throat. "Hey!" I called out. "Who are you?" I stumbled back, nearly slipped on the wet grass. The figure took a single step forward. Then, the lighthouse beam swung around, blinding me. And when my eyes adjusted, he was gone. Just me, the fog, and the crash of waves. I packed my bags the next morning, told the Historical Society I'd gotten sick, left half my clothes behind, and never went back there. Years later, I still dream about that summer. In the dream, I'm back on the lantern deck, staring out at that rock offshore. And every time the light stops, frozen, illuminating a figure standing there, waiting. In the spring of 2021, I took a short contract job at Marrow Point Light, an old cast iron lighthouse on a jagged piece of coastline in Maine. It was built in the late 1800s and had been automated decades ago. But the Coast Guard still hired seasonal keepers to do inspections, run the generator, and keep vandals away. I'm not superstitious. I took the job for the quiet. After losing my father to cancer earlier that year, I just wanted to get away from people, noise, and the hollow pity of friends who didn't know what to say. The supply boat dropped me off with 2 weeks of rations and a radio to call in if I needed an early pickup. Once the boat left, it was just me, the wind, and the distant churn of the sea. On the second day, while checking the tower wiring, I found the logbook, a leather-bound book, a little damp, brittle with age, left on a shelf under the lantern gear. Inside, the last few entries were from the previous keeper, a guy named R. Tate. Most entries were mundane: cleaned glass, replaced oil and generator, sea rough tonight. Normal stuff. But near the end, the changed. Heard voices on the radio again. Couldn't sleep, thought I saw a light moving inland, but no boats do. Then the last entry, barely legible. "I don't think I'm alone." It unsettled me, but I shrugged it off. Isolation can mess with your head. I put the book back and tried not to think about it, faintly whispering. That night, as I settled into the tiny keeper's quarters, the wind picked up, howling against the tower. I flicked on the marine radio, more for company than anything else. Mostly static, faintly whispering. It wasn't words. I could make out just breathy syllables broken by the crackle of interference. It lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then, silence. I convinced myself. It was crosstalk, a trawler's crew or fisherman, bleeding over, watching. A few nights later, it happened again. Same frequency, same low whispering, impossible to understand. But this time something new, a single word, clear and cold, through the static. Watching. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I scanned the horizon from the lantern deck. Nothing but black water and the scattered lights of distant boats. Determined to find a rational answer, I dug around in the old storage room below the keeper's quarters. Under cracked buoy markers and paint cans, I found a portable tape recorder, an ancient thing covered in dust but with batteries inside. Curious, I pressed play. At first, just wind and hiss, then footsteps on metal stairs, the soft scrape of something heavy being dragged. and a voice, low, breathless, almost conversational. "I see you. I know what you did." The tape clicked off. I rewound it, played it again, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear. It wasn't my voice, it didn't sound like Tate's either, though I'd never heard him speak. Who recorded it, and what did they mean? That night, I barely slept. Eyes open, in the dark, listening for footsteps that never came. The next day, I told myself it had to be a prank, left by some board keeper or fisherman messing around. But those batteries were fresh enough to still work, which meant someone had been here recently, maybe while Tate was still alive. By the end of the first week, paranoia crept in like damp in the walls. I started locking the tower door at night, double-checking every window, wedging a chair under the bedroom latch every single night. The radio stayed silent for a few days, then, just after midnight, it crackled to life. A voice, breathy, slow, almost like it was right beside me. "Look outside." Against every instinct screaming no, I stepped onto the balcony. At first, nothing. Then inland, where there shouldn't be lights, a single white beam swinging side to side, like someone walking with a flashlight, searching. I watched until it vanished behind the dunes. The next morning, I checked the path from the beach. Windswept sand, no footprints, nothing. But in the logbook, scrawled on the inside back cover, a warning I hadn't seen before. "If you see the light inland, do not answer the radio." That afternoon, the radio stayed silent. On the 11th night, the radio woke me again. The same voice whispering through the static, "Come down, bring the tape." I didn't move. Then louder, angrier, barely human, "Come down." The tower seemed to hum with the force of it. I grabbed the recorder, ran up the spiral stairs to the lantern room, locked the hatch behind me. From there I could see everything, the cliffs, the Black Sea, the scrubland behind. In the weak glow of the rotating lens, I saw someone on the path below, standing, looking up, holding something, maybe another radio. They didn't move, didn't call out, just waited. Minutes passed, my breath fogged on the cold glass. Then the radio crackled again, softer this time. "You can't hide. Bring it down." I turned it off. When I dared to look again, the figure was gone. The supply boat came the next day. I didn't wait for Kent to tie up. I met him waist deep in the surf, bag over my shoulder, the recorder still clutched in my hand. "What's wrong?" he asked. Seeing my face, I just shook my head. In town, I handed the recorder to the Coast Guard office. They promised to look into it, but I never heard back. I quit, didn't finish my contract, took a job inland, away from the sea. It's been years now. Sometimes, late at night, I wake and almost expect to hear static at my bedside. I've read about Marrow Point Light since. Tate disappeared. They never found him, just the logbook. And some rusted tools. They keep the light running by remote control. Now, I don't tell this story often, because it sounds crazy, because I can't prove any of it. All I know is, in that place, someone or something wanted the past kept hidden. And that recorder wasn't left by accident. It was left for someone to find. And when I did, they came looking.